I was 32 when I discovered the truth about my marriage. For 7 years, I believed Jason and I had built something beautiful together in our Atlanta suburb home. I trusted him completely, never imagining that the man who promised to love me forever was plotting behind my back with his mother. That evening, a forgotten scarf and an overheard conversation changed everything I thought I knew about my life. Before I tell you my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had your trust betrayed by someone you loved. Growing up, I always believed in fairy tales. Not the kind with dragons and magic, but the ones where you meet someone special, fall in love, and build a beautiful life together. When I met Jason at my friend Katie's art gallery opening 8 years ago, I thought I had found my happily ever after. Jason was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and dreams. He was 34, established in his career as a financial analyst at his family's company, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that drew me to him immediately. We spent the entire evening talking in a corner of the gallery, oblivious to the art and other guests around us. Our romance moved quickly after that. Within weeks, we were seeing each other every day. After 3 months, he gave me a key to his apartment. By the time our 6-month anniversary rolled around, we were discussing our future together. 10 months after our first meeting, Jason proposed during a weekend trip to Savannah. I said yes without hesitation. The wedding was beautiful but intimate. His mother Greta insisted on handling most of the arrangements, which I appreciated at the time. She was a striking woman in her early 60s, with perfectly styled silver hair and an impeccable wardrobe of designer clothes. As the CEO of the family company, she exuded authority and sophistication. "Welcome to the family, dear," Greta said, embracing me after the ceremony. "I always wanted a daughter, and now I finally have one." I was touched by her words. My own parents had moved to Arizona for retirement, and I loved the idea of having a mother figure nearby. Greta seemed supportive and kind, offering advice about marriage and frequently inviting us over for elaborate Sunday dinners. After the wedding, Jason and I settled into a comfortable routine. I continued advancing in my career as a marketing executive at a healthcare company, while Jason worked alongside his mother. We purchased a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial-style home in a prestigious neighborhood with significant financial help from Greta. She called it her wedding gift to us, though I later realized it came with invisible strings attached. "Family takes care of family," she would say whenever I expressed discomfort about her generous financial contributions. Life seemed perfect. My career was thriving. My marriage felt solid, and we had started talking about having children within the next year. I had everything I thought I wanted. There were small signs of trouble, though I dismissed them at the time. Jason never made important decisions without consulting his mother first. Whether it was vacation plans, home renovations, or even which car to purchase, Greta's opinion always seemed to carry more weight than mine. I told myself this was normal, given their close relationship and the family business connection. Greta had a talent for delivering criticism disguised as helpful suggestions. "That dress is lovely, Ivy, but perhaps something less fitted would be more appropriate for a business dinner." Or, "Your career is important, of course, but remember that Jason needs support at home too." Each comment came with a warm smile that made it difficult to object without seeming oversensitive. My best friend Melissa noticed the dynamic before I did. During our weekly coffee dates, she would occasionally mention her concerns. "Don't you think Greta is a little too involved in your marriage?" she asked about 6 months after the wedding. "She's just being helpful," I replied. "Jason is her only child and she wants us to be happy." Melissa didn't look convinced. "Just be careful. My aunt was in a similar situation and her mother-in-law nearly destroyed her marriage." I laughed off her warning. "Greta and I get along great. Besides, Jason and I are solid." Looking back, I should have paid more attention to Melissa's concerns. Maybe I would have noticed sooner when things began to change. About 5 years into our marriage, Jason started working later hours. He became distracted, and secretive, frequently stepping outside to take phone calls and changing his phone password. When I asked about these changes, he blamed work stress and a major project he was handling with his mother. "The European expansion is taking everything I've got right now," he explained. "Mom and I are working around the clock to make it happen." I believed him because I wanted to, because admitting there might be something wrong in my perfect life was too painful to consider. So I ignored the knot of unease growing in my stomach and the distance widening between us. Instead, I threw myself into my work and our home, determined to be the supportive wife Jason needed during this stressful time. If only I had known then what was really happening behind closed doors. The first real disappointment came during a family dinner at Greta's sprawling mansion. It was a monthly tradition that I usually enjoyed, but this evening felt different. As we gathered around the ornate dining table with its crystal glasses and fine china, I noticed how Greta and Jason seemed to be having their own private conversation despite the other family members present. "The Anderson account is nearly finalized," Jason was telling his mother in a hushed tone. When I leaned closer to join the conversation, they both straightened up and quickly changed the subject. "Ivy, did I tell you about the new chef I hired for the country club?" Greta asked, with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "He makes the most divine chocolate soufflé." Throughout dinner, I felt increasingly excluded. Jason's cousins and their spouses discussed company matters while Jason and Greta exchanged meaningful glances across the table. Whenever I tried to contribute to the conversation, someone would politely acknowledge my comment before steering the discussion in another direction. Later that week, I was passed over for a major promotion at work. The position of marketing director went to a colleague with less experience but better connections to the CEO. I came home devastated, needing my husband's support. "These things happen, Ivy," Jason said dismissively when I told him the news. He barely looked up from his laptop. "Maybe it's for the best. You already work too many hours." His response stung more than the professional disappointment. Where was the man who had once been my biggest cheerleader? The next day during lunch with Greta, she made matters worse. "Perhaps this is a sign, dear. Many women find that corporate careers aren't worth the stress. Have you and Jason discussed starting a family soon? Being a mother is the most rewarding career of all." I stirred my salad, biting back a sharp response. "We're not quite ready for children yet, and I love my career even with the disappointments." Greta patted my hand. "Of course you do, but priorities change. Jason's father and I always believed that family comes first." Around this time, I noticed other troubling changes. Jason began questioning my purchases, even though we had always maintained separate discretionary spending accounts alongside our joint finances. "Do you really need another pair of shoes?" he asked when I came home with a pair of heels for an industry gala. "We should be more careful with our spending." This from a man who had just purchased a new golf set without discussion. The financial scrutiny continued. I found receipts for expensive jewelry and dinners at upscale restaurants I had never been to. When I asked Jason about them, he claimed they were business expenses. "Mom and I entertain clients all the time," he said. "You know that." Our 7th anniversary was approaching, and I planned a weekend getaway to rekindle our connection. 3 days before we were set to leave, Jason canceled. "Sorry, Ivy, but something's come up with the European deal. Mom needs me in the office all weekend." I was crushed but tried to understand. "Can it wait just 2 days? We've had these reservations for months." "Not everyone has the luxury of putting personal time above professional responsibilities," he snapped, then immediately softened. "I'll make it up to you, I promise. We'll do something special next month." That promise, like many others, was never kept. Later that week, I borrowed Jason's phone to call the plumber when mine died. A text notification popped up from someone named A, with just a heart emoji. When I mentioned it to Jason, he grabbed the phone from my hand. "That's Amanda from work. She's just grateful I helped her with the presentation." His explanation came too quickly, too rehearsed. I called Melissa that night, my stomach in knots. Am I being paranoid, or is something really wrong? Trust your instincts, she said after I described everything that had been happening. But don't jump to conclusions yet. Keep your eyes open and start protecting yourself just in case. I tried repeatedly to reconnect with Jason. I cooked his favorite meals, initiated date nights, and even suggested couples counseling. Each attempt was met with excuses or half-hearted participation. The final piece of this disappointing puzzle came when I attended the company's quarterly social event. A young woman with sleek dark hair and designer clothes approached Jason immediately. They fell into easy conversation, laughing at inside jokes I wasn't part of. Greta appeared beside them, beaming with approval. Ivy, have you met Amanda? She's our rising star in the finance department. Jason has been mentoring her. Amanda gave me a smile that seemed genuine enough. Your husband has been such an amazing guide. I wouldn't have survived my first year without him. How wonderful, I replied, noticing how Jason's hand lingered just a moment too long on Amanda's shoulder. During the drive home, I asked Jason about her. Amanda seems nice. You've never mentioned her before. Haven't I? She's just a colleague. Mom thinks she has potential. I'm sure she does. I thought, watching my husband's profile in the darkness of the car. I'm sure she does. The spring after our 7th anniversary, the tensions in our marriage continued to mount. I noticed small but significant changes around our home that set off alarm bells in my mind. One evening, I was searching for our insurance documents to file a claim for some minor damage to my car. When I opened the home office filing cabinet, I discovered the mortgage paperwork had been moved from its usual place. Later, when I mentioned this to Jason, he shrugged it off. I needed it for some refinancing research. The interest rates are dropping, so I thought we might want to look into that. Shouldn't we discuss financial decisions like refinancing together? I asked. Jason's expression hardened slightly. I'm just researching options, Ivy. No need to make a federal case out of it. His dismissive attitude was becoming a pattern. Whenever I raised concerns about our finances, he would accuse me of being distrustful or micromanaging. Yet he felt perfectly entitled to question my much smaller expenditures. Greta's presence in our lives also intensified. She began dropping by our house unannounced, always when she knew Jason would be at work. I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd check on you, she would say with a smile that never reached her eyes. She would walk through our home, examining everything with a critical eye. Have you considered repainting the living room? This color is looking a bit dated. After one such visit, I returned from the kitchen with coffee to find her quickly closing a drawer in our home office. When I asked what she was looking for, she laughed lightly. Just a pen, dear. Mine ran out of ink. There were plenty of pens in the cup holder on the desk. The most disturbing incident occurred when I came home early from work with a migraine. As I entered through the side door, I heard Greta's voice coming from our home office. Are the papers in order? She was asking. We need to move quickly before she suspects anything. Almost, Jason replied. Thomas says everything should be ready by next month. Thomas was our family lawyer, a friend of Greta's, who had handled our wills and other legal matters. I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding. What papers? What were they planning? I slipped back out the door before they could discover me, and sat in my car for nearly an hour, trying to make sense of what I had overheard. That night, I checked our joint credit card account online, only to discover my name had been removed as an authorized user. When I confronted Jason, he claimed it was a bank error that he would resolve immediately. 2 weeks later, my name was still not back on the account. Strange mail began arriving, addressed only to Jason, personal and confidential. He always collected it quickly and took it directly to his office. Around this time, his weekend business trips became more frequent. He would leave Friday afternoon and return late Sunday evening, often smelling of unfamiliar perfume that he claimed was from sitting next to someone on the plane. Our social circle began to shrink as well. Friends we had shared for years suddenly became too busy to meet with us as a couple. Later, I would discover that Jason had been telling them our marriage was in trouble because of my emotional issues and increasing paranoia. My suspicions grew when I used Jason's laptop to check my email one day. He had forgotten to log out of a Gmail account I had never seen before. The account name wasn't his usual one, and I discovered dozens of exchanges between him, his mother, and Thomas the lawyer. Before I could read any of the emails, Jason came home unexpectedly. I quickly closed the browser and pretended to be working on something else. "Using my laptop?" he asked sharply. "Mine was updating," I explained. "I just needed to check my work email quickly." He took the laptop from me, his expression unreadable. "Next time, ask first." Greta began suggesting that I seemed stressed and might benefit from therapy. "I know a wonderful therapist who has helped several family friends through difficult times," she told me during one of our increasingly uncomfortable lunches. "Jason and I are concerned about your well-being." The therapist, it turned out, was a close friend of Greta's from her country club. I politely declined. My worst fears seemed confirmed when I was searching for a stapler in Jason's home office and found a brochure for a prestigious divorce law firm tucked inside a folder. The firm specialized in high net worth separations and asset protection during divorce. That same week, I learned from a friend who worked at Jason's company that significant shares of stock had been transferred from our joint investment account into a new account under only Jason's name. When I checked our investment portfolio online, I could no longer access the complete account information. I finally confronted Jason one night after dinner. "What's going on with our finances? Why was I removed from the credit card? Why can't I see our full investment portfolio anymore?" Jason's face darkened. "You're being paranoid again. This is exactly what concerns me and Mom. You're creating problems where none exist." "Don't gaslight me," I said, the term I had recently learned from articles about emotional manipulation. "I know something is happening. I deserve to know what's going on in my own marriage." Jason stormed out of the house and didn't return until the next day. When he came back, he acted as if nothing had happened, but the wall between us had grown higher. The stress of the situation began affecting my health. I developed insomnia, lost weight, and found it difficult to concentrate at work. During a particularly tearful lunch with Melissa, she grabbed my hands across the table. "Ivy, listen to me. You need to protect yourself. Whatever is happening, you need to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." "What does that even mean?" I asked, wiping away tears. "It means you start gathering information and making plans. It means you stop believing the lies and trust your instincts." Melissa's expression was fierce with loyalty. "And it means you remember that whatever happens, you are not alone." Her words were the wake-up call I needed. That night, as Jason worked late again, I made a decision. If my husband and mother-in-law were conspiring against me, I needed to find out exactly what they were planning. No more burying my head in the sand. No more making excuses for their behavior. It was time to discover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The revelation came on a Tuesday evening in April. I had told Jason I would be attending a marketing conference dinner, but decided to skip it when the keynote speaker canceled. Rather than going home, I drove to Greta's estate, intending to collect a serving platter I had left there after helping with a charity event. I used the key Greta had given us years ago and entered quietly, calling out as I stepped into the marble foyer. No one answered, but I heard voices coming from Greta's home office. I approached slowly, not wanting to interrupt if she was in a meeting. The door was slightly ajar, and I recognized Jason's voice immediately. "She has no idea what's coming," he was saying. "Thomas has everything prepared for the filing next week." "And the asset transfers?" Greta asked. "Almost complete. We've moved everything of value to the offshore accounts and the trust you set up. The house is secured in the family LLC now, too. I stood frozen, my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. What about her career prospects? We can't risk her having financial stability. Greta's voice was calculating. Jason laughed, a cold sound I had never heard from him before. Taken care of. Richard at Kingston Healthcare owes me a favor. He's made sure she'll be passed over for any advancement for the foreseeable future. And I've spoken with the other major firms in the area. No one will hire her. Perfect. And Amanda? Excited about her new executive position. She's young, ambitious, and much more suitable for the family's image. The board will approve her promotion next month, right after I file the divorce papers. I felt physically ill as the truth became clear. My husband was having an affair with his colleague, planning to divorce me, and had been systematically undermining my career and financial security with his mother's help. I still think the anniversary dinner is too theatrical, Jason was saying. We could just have Thomas deliver the papers. Nonsense, Greta replied. The anniversary dinner is perfect, public enough to prevent a scene but private enough for discretion. Thomas will join us at the end with all the documents. By dessert, your marriage mistake will be on its way to being corrected. Marriage mistake. The words stabbed through me like physical pain. 7 years of my life reduced to a mistake to be corrected. And she still suspects nothing? Greta asked. She's noticed some changes, but I've convinced her she's being paranoid. By the time she realizes what's happening, it will be too late. The settlement offer is insultingly low, but given the documentation we've created about her mental instability, she'll be advised to take it rather than fight. You've learned well, son, Greta said with pride in her voice. Your father tried to take half my company in our divorce. I made sure he left with nothing but the clothes on his back. No one takes what belongs to our family. I backed away silently, tears streaming down my face. I managed to make it to my car before completely breaking down. For nearly an hour, I sat there sobbing, the full weight of the betrayal crushing me. My marriage had been a lie. The man I loved had been plotting against me with his mother. They had been sabotaging my career, isolating me from friends, and preparing to discard me with nothing. Even worse was the revelation about Thomas, the family lawyer I had trusted. He had helped draft our wills, handled our house closing, and had always been friendly to me at family gatherings. Now I understood he had been working against me all along. I called Melissa, barely able to form coherent sentences through my tears. She immediately drove to meet me. Come home with me tonight, she insisted. You shouldn't be alone, and you definitely shouldn't go back to that house right now. For the next 3 days, I stayed in Melissa's guest room, alternating between crying jags and periods of numb disbelief. I couldn't eat or sleep. The betrayal replayed in my mind constantly. Jason called repeatedly, but I told him I was staying at a hotel near the conference to network with colleagues. Is something wrong? He asked during our third phone conversation. You sound strange. Just tired from the conference? I lied, amazed at how normal I could make my voice sound when inside I was shattered. Well, don't forget our anniversary dinner next Friday, he said. I've made reservations at La Maison. Mom might join us for dessert. Of course she would. To watch me receive divorce papers and the news that my husband had been cheating with a younger colleague whose career he and Greta had been nurturing while sabotaging mine. As the initial shock began to fade, a cold realization took its place. This had been happening for at least a year. Every time I expressed concerns, Jason had dismissed them and made me doubt my own perceptions. The isolation, the financial maneuvering, the career sabotage, all pointed to a long-term strategy. Most painful was discovering a small digital recording device hidden in our bedroom when I briefly returned home to collect some clothes. They had been recording my private conversations likely to use against me in divorce proceedings. Piece by piece, I assembled the truth. Greta had never accepted me. From the beginning, I had been a temporary inconvenience to be managed until Jason came to his senses and chose a woman more acceptable to the family's image and ambitions. The realization that my entire marriage had been viewed as impermanent by my husband was the most devastating blow of all. As I lay awake in Melissa's guest room on the third night, something shifted inside me. The tears dried up. The crushing pain in my chest began to transform into something harder, more focused. They wanted to destroy me. Fine. But I would not make it easy for them. I would not play the role of naive, discarded wife they had scripted for me. By morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. "You need the best divorce attorney in the city," Melissa said over coffee the next morning. "Someone who isn't afraid to go up against Greta's money and influence." I nodded, already scrolling through my phone. "I'm one step ahead of you. I have an appointment with Diane Carter this afternoon." Diane Carter was known as the Barracuda in legal circles. She specialized in high-conflict divorces and had a reputation for being relentless in protecting her clients' interests. Her fees were astronomical, but I had been saving independently throughout my marriage. The fun money account Jason knew nothing about would cover the initial retainer. The meeting with Diane exceeded my expectations. After hearing my story, including the overheard conversation, she leaned forward with fierce intensity. "What they're doing is not just morally reprehensible, it's potentially illegal. The systematic hiding of marital assets, the corporate espionage aspect of sabotaging your career, the unauthorized surveillance in your bedroom, all give us significant leverage." "What do you recommend?" I asked. "First, we document everything. Second, we gather evidence they don't know we have. Third, we let them think their plan is working until we're ready to strike." That evening, I returned home to Jason with a carefully composed demeanor. I needed to maintain the illusion that I suspected nothing while implementing Diane's strategy. "How was the conference?" Jason asked, barely looking up from his phone. "Productive," I replied. "I made some good connections." Over the next 2 weeks, I became a covert operative in my own home. I installed small cameras in the common areas of our house, cameras purchased with cash and registered to Melissa's address. I didn't want to stoop to their level by recording the bedroom, but the home office, living room, and kitchen were fair game. Diane helped me document every joint asset we possessed. I photographed valuables, copied financial statements, and created a detailed inventory of everything in our home. During the day when Jason was at work, I carefully copied key documents I found in his home office. The most difficult task was transferring my portion of our remaining joint savings to a new account at a different bank. Diane had advised this step to protect me from being left penniless, but I worried Jason would notice immediately. Fortunately, his attention was so focused on his affair and divorce preparations that the withdrawal went undetected. I scheduled a confidential meeting with my company's HR director, ostensibly to discuss career development opportunities. Once in the private meeting, I carefully explained that I had reason to believe someone was interfering with my professional advancement. "I don't want to make accusations without evidence," I explained. "But if someone outside the company has been providing negative feedback about me, I would consider that a serious ethical breach that management should investigate." The HR director looked troubled. "I'll look into this discreetly. If what you're suggesting is true, it would violate several company policies." Meanwhile, I reconnected with Stephen Hamilton, a former mentor who had moved to a competing healthcare firm 2 years earlier. We met for coffee, and after catching up, I cautiously mentioned that I might be looking for new opportunities soon. "Actually, we have a senior director of marketing position opening up next month," Stephen said. "The timing could be perfect. Would you be interested in discussing it further?" "Very interested," I replied, feeling a glimmer of hope for my professional future. While maintaining my performance at work and the facade of normalcy at home, I began building relationships with several board members at Jason and Greta's company. I volunteered for a charitable foundation where 2 key board members served as trustees and made myself indispensable during their annual fundraising gala. During this time, I discovered something unexpected. While searching for more financial documents in Jason's home office, I found a folder of company records he had brought home to review. Inside were details of several questionable transactions that appeared to violate regulatory compliance standards. I carefully photographed these documents as well, not yet sure how, or if, I would use this information. Through discreet investigation and with Melissa's help, I documented Jason's affair with Amanda thoroughly. We photographed them entering and leaving hotels together during his supposed business trips, collected receipts for gifts he had purchased her, and even recorded a lunch conversation where they openly discussed their relationship and plans for after his divorce. The most disturbing discovery came from a conversation with Greta's former housekeeper Maria, whom Melissa tracked down through social connections. Over coffee at a small cafe far from Greta's neighborhood, Maria revealed that this was not the first time Greta had orchestrated such a scenario. "She did the same to Mr. Peterson, Jason's father," Maria explained. "And there was another young wife before you. Greta finds these women she thinks aren't good enough for her son, tolerates them for a few years, then helps Jason discard them when someone more suitable comes along." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Maria's eyes hardened. "Because she destroyed good people and paid me to keep quiet. I'm retired now. What can she do to me? Besides, you seem like you might be strong enough to fight back." As the anniversary dinner approached, I met with Diane to finalize our strategy. We prepared for multiple scenarios and ensured all our documentation was organized and secure. "Remember," Diane cautioned, "the moment of surprise is our greatest advantage. Let them think they're in control until the very last minute." In the days before the dinner, I quietly moved my most treasured possessions and irreplaceable items to Melissa's house items with sentimental rather than monetary value. Family photos, journals, jewelry from my grandmother, things I couldn't bear to lose in the coming confrontation. The night before our anniversary, Jason brought home champagne and flowers, playing the role of devoted husband one last time. We toasted to 7 wonderful years, the lie sour on my tongue. To tomorrow night, Jason said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "A dinner you'll never forget." I forced a smile and clinked my glass against his. "I'm certainly counting on it." Our anniversary fell on a Friday, exactly 7 years from the day we had exchanged vows and promises that Jason never intended to keep. La Maison was the most exclusive restaurant in the city, requiring reservations months in advance. The fact that Jason had secured a prime table indicated how long he had been planning this moment. I spent the day preparing myself mentally and emotionally. Diane and I had reviewed our strategy repeatedly. Documents were in place. Evidence was secured. All that remained was the confrontation itself. "Remember," Melissa said as she helped me get ready, "no matter what happens tonight, you've already won by taking back your power." I chose my outfit carefully, a sleek black dress that projected confidence and composure. My hair and makeup were flawless, a armor of perfection. When Jason saw me descending the stairs, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. "You look different tonight," he remarked. "It's a special occasion," I replied with a small smile. "Shall we go?" The drive to the restaurant was filled with tense silence. Jason attempted small talk several times, but my brief responses eventually discouraged him. He seemed nervous, checking his watch repeatedly. La Maison greeted us with subtle opulence. Crystal chandeliers, white linen tablecloths, and the soft murmur of exclusive clientele. The maitre d' led us to a private alcove where a bottle of champagne already waited in an ice bucket. "Happy anniversary," Jason said, raising his glass after the server poured. I studied his face, searching for any sign of remorse or hesitation. There was none, just the barely concealed anticipation of a predator about to pounce. 7 years? I said, clinking my glass against his. It seems like just yesterday we were exchanging vows. Dinner proceeded with excruciating slowness. Jason kept checking his phone under the table, presumably coordinating with Greta and Thomas. I maintained the charade, discussing bland topics and reminiscing about our early days together, as if I still believed in the fiction of our marriage. As the server cleared our main course plates, I saw them enter. Greta elegant in an expensive blue dress accompanied by Thomas carrying his signature leather briefcase. They spotted us and began making their way toward our table. Jason straightened his tie and gave me a strange smile. "I hope you don't mind that Mom and Thomas are joining us for dessert," he said. "They have something important to discuss with us." "How thoughtful of them to come on our anniversary," I replied evenly. Greta Air kissed my cheek, her perfume overwhelming. "Happy anniversary, dear. Such a milestone." Thomas nodded awkwardly, not quite meeting my eyes. "Good evening, Ivy. Jason." Just as they were about to sit down, I raised my hand slightly. "Before we begin, I hope you don't mind that I invited someone as well." Jason's smile faltered. "You what?" Diane Carter approached our table, also carrying a briefcase. Her red suit stood out among the muted colors of the restaurant, a deliberate choice we had discussed. "Who is this?" Greta demanded, her composure slipping for the first time. "This is Diane Carter, my attorney," I said calmly. "I believe she should be present for this discussion, don't you?" The shock on their faces was everything I had hoped for. Jason's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. Greta's perfectly made-up face hardened into a mask. Thomas, recognizing Diane's reputation, visibly paled. "There must be some misunderstanding," Jason finally managed. "We're just having an anniversary dinner." I reached into my clutch and removed a small digital recorder, placing it on the table. "Are you sure about that?" "Because I heard a very different plan when I visited your mother's house 2 weeks ago. Something about correcting a marriage mistake during our anniversary dinner." Jason's face drained of color. "Ivy, I can explain." "Please do," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Explain how you and your mother have been plotting to divorce me for at least a year. Explain how you've hidden our marital assets in offshore accounts and family trusts. Explain how you convinced Richard at my company to sabotage my career advancement." Greta recovered first, her eyes narrowing. "You have no proof of any of this, and even if you did, you signed an ironclad prenuptial agreement. A prenuptial agreement that becomes void in cases of infidelity," Diane interjected smoothly. "We have extensive documentation of Jason's affair with Amanda Parker, including hotel receipts, photographs, and witness statements." Thomas shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Perhaps we should discuss this in private." "Why?" I asked. "You were planning to humiliate me publicly. Why shouldn't I return the favor?" Jason attempted damage control. "Ivy, you're misunderstanding everything. Yes, our marriage has problems, but—" "Save it!" I cut him off. "I have the recordings from your mother's office. I know exactly what you planned." Greta's composure finally cracked. "You were trespassing in my home, recording private conversations. That's illegal." "Not when I used the key you gave me to enter a home where I was always welcome," I replied. "But you know what is illegal corporate espionage: interfering with someone's employment, financial fraud, creating false documents about someone's mental health." At the mention of fraud, Thomas visibly flinched. I turned my attention to him. "Did you know, Thomas, that when you created those trusts to hide marital assets, you potentially committed ethical violations that could result in disbarment? Diane has already prepared a complaint to the Bar Association." "I was acting on my client's instructions," Thomas protested weakly. "Yes, and helping them commit fraud in the process," Diane added. "Not a strong defense." The situation escalated further when the restaurant's maitre d' approached our table. "Mr. Peterson, there's someone asking for you at the front." Jason looked confused until Amanda appeared behind the maitre d'. She was wearing an evening dress and looking expectantly toward our table. "Jason?" she called out, then stopped abruptly when she saw all of us. "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought—" She trailed off, realizing she had walked into something unexpected. "Perfect timing, Amanda," I said. "We were just discussing your relationship with my husband and your upcoming executive position at the company." Amanda's eyes widened in panic as she looked to Jason for guidance. Greta stood up suddenly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is absurd! I won't sit here and be accused of ridiculous conspiracies by a clearly unstable woman." Her voice had risen enough that nearby diners were turning to watch. I remained perfectly calm. "The only conspiracy here is the one you orchestrated to destroy me. But here's what's going to happen instead. Jason and I will divorce, but on my terms, not yours. The terms Diane has prepared are generous but fair, considering the circumstances." I nodded to Diane, who opened her briefcase and removed a document, sliding it across to Thomas. "Additionally," I continued, "I've already spoken with 3 members of the company board about certain regulatory compliance issues I discovered in documents Jason carelessly brought home. They were very concerned and have requested a meeting next week." Jason lunged for my arm. "You had no right to go through my papers." "They were in my home in an office I have every right to enter," I replied, pulling away from his grasp. Several other diners were now openly watching our table. "You'll never work in this city again," Greta hissed, leaning across the table. "I have connections everywhere. Actually, I've accepted a senior director position with Hamilton Healthcare starting next month, and I'm sure they'll be very interested to learn about attempts to interfere with their new executive's career." The maitre d' approached again, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating scene. "Is everything all right here?" "No," I said, standing up. "But it will be. I believe we're finished with dinner." I turned to Jason one last time. "I've already moved my essential belongings out of the house. I'll collect the rest once the divorce papers are finalized. Diane will handle all further communication." As I walked away with Diane beside me, I heard Greta's voice tight with fury behind me. "This isn't over, Ivy." I stopped and turned back. "Actually, Greta, it is. And by the way, thank you for the expensive anniversary dinner. It was everything I could have hoped for." As Diane and I stepped out into the cool evening air, I finally allowed myself to breathe. The confrontation had gone even better than we had planned. "That, said Diane, with professional admiration, "was masterfully executed." For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. "It was, wasn't it? The war wasn't over, of course. There would be legal battles ahead, but I had won the first and most important battle. I had taken back my power, my dignity, and my future, and I had done it on my own terms." 6 months after that fateful anniversary dinner, I stood at the window of my new apartment, watching the sunset paint the Atlanta skyline in shades of gold and pink. The space wasn't as large as the house I had shared with Jason, but it was mine, completely decorated in the bright colors and contemporary style he had always vetoed. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks earlier, with terms far more favorable than Jason and Greta had ever intended. Diane had been relentless using the evidence we had gathered to secure a settlement that included half of our marital assets, including those they had attempted to hide temporary spousal support, and a non-interference clause that legally barred both Jason and Greta from attempting to damage my professional reputation. "They underestimated you at every turn," Diane had said during our final meeting. "That was their biggest mistake." My career had taken an unexpected but wonderful turn. The position at Hamilton Healthcare had evolved from senior director to vice president of marketing after I implemented a successful rebranding campaign that increased their market share by 17%. Stephen had become not just a mentor again, but a true friend who valued my professional expertise. The regulatory investigation into Jason and Greta's company was still ongoing, but preliminary findings had already forced several board members to resign. Jason had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. His relationship with Amanda had imploded once she realized the extent of his deception and the possible legal consequences she might face for her involvement. According to mutual friends, Jason had made multiple attempts to reconcile with me once he understood the full extent of what he stood to lose, both personally and professionally. He sent flowers, emails, and even a handwritten letter professing remorse and asking for another chance. I never responded to any of them. The healing process hadn't been easy. I spent 3 months in weekly therapy sessions working through the betrayal trauma and rebuilding my sense of self-worth. There were days when the pain felt as fresh as the night I had overheard their plan. Days when I questioned every memory of my marriage, wondering if any of it had been real. Days when anger threatened to consume me. Melissa remained my rock throughout it all. She had helped me find my apartment, accompanied me to difficult legal meetings, and listened without judgment when I needed to vent my anger or cry about my losses. "You're not just surviving this," she told me after a particularly difficult day. "You're transforming because of it." She was right. The woman I had become through this ordeal was stronger, more discerning, and unwilling to settle for relationships that didn't honor my worth. I had discovered strengths I never knew I possessed, and rebuilt connections with my own family, who Greta had subtly isolated me from over the years. My parents had flown in from Arizona when they learned what happened, my father's outrage at Jason's betrayal, matched only by my mother's practical support as she helped me begin again. We were closer now than we had been in years, with regular video calls and plans for quarterly visits. New friendships had blossomed as well, relationships based on authentic connection rather than social obligation or professional networking. I had joined a hiking group, taken up painting, and even started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping others who were rebuilding their lives after relationship trauma. The pain hadn't disappeared completely. Some days, I still grieved for the marriage I thought I had, the future I had planned, the family we had talked about creating. But those moments grew less frequent and less intense with time. In their place came a sense of freedom I had never known while with Jason, the freedom to make my own choices, set my own priorities, and live authentically. The most valuable lesson from this painful chapter was learning to trust my instincts again. Looking back, I could see all the moments when my intuition had tried to warn me that something wasn't right. All the times I had noticed inconsistencies in Jason's behavior, or sensed Greta's hidden hostility, but dismissed my concerns to keep the peace. Never again would I ignore those internal warning signals to make someone else comfortable. I had also learned the crucial importance of financial independence, even within marriage. My separate savings account, modest investments, and continuous career development had given me options when Jason and Greta tried to leave me with nothing. I shared this wisdom frequently with other women, encouraging them to maintain their financial autonomy regardless of their relationship status. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I moved away from the window and prepared for an evening with friends. My new dining table was set for 5 with flowers, wine, and the ingredients for dinner waiting in the kitchen. Tonight was about celebration and gratitude for the people who had helped me through the darkest period of my life. My phone pinged with the text from Melissa. "On my way, bringing that chocolate cake you love." I smiled, feeling a wave of appreciation for her unwavering support. No matter how well Jason and Greta had planned their betrayal, they had never accounted for the strength that comes from genuine friendship and self-belief. The doorbell rang, and I took one last look around my beautiful new home before going to welcome my first guest. In trying to destroy me, my ex-husband and his mother had inadvertently set me free. They had taken what they thought was mine, only to help me discover what was truly mine all along: my resilience, my worth, and my power to create a life of my own design. The woman who opened that door was not the same one who had sat frozen in her car outside Greta's mansion 6 months earlier. She was stronger, wiser, and infinitely more authentic. She had learned that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to what you truly need. And she was ready to embrace whatever came next on her own terms. Have you ever discovered that someone close to you wasn't who they pretended to be? How did you handle that betrayal? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming life's unexpected challenges. Thank you for listening, and remember that your intuition is often trying to protect you. Trust it.